The huge metal doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a deep sound that echoed through the massive room. Inside, beings from dozens of different worlds sat in rows of seats that curved around a central speaking area. The air felt thick, with worry and fear. Today was not a normal meeting day. Jake Harrison walked slowly into the chamber, his human eyes taking in the strange sight before him. Tall blue creatures with skin like crystal sat next to bug-like beings with many arms. Flying creatures with wings made of light hovered above seats designed for those who could not sit. In 3 months since first contact, Jake had seen many alien species, but this gathering was bigger than anything before. As the human representative, Jake wore his best military uniform. The dark blue fabric felt heavy on his shoulders. He carried a small recording device and a notebook ready to write down everything that happened. His superiors on Earth wanted to know every detail of what the aliens planned to discuss today. The chamber grew quiet as a tall figure in flowing robes walked to the center of the room. This was Speaker Valen of the Andromedan Union, the current leader of the Galactic Council. His voice carried to every corner of the massive space without needing any machines to make it louder. "We gathered today to discuss the human problem," Speaker Valen announced. His words made Jake's stomach tighten. Problem. That was how they saw his entire species. A creature that looked like a walking tree with silver bark stood up from the front row. "The humans spread too fast," it said in a voice like wind through leaves. 3 months ago they had ships in 1 system. Now they have colonies in 12 systems. This speed is dangerous. Jake wrote down the words but kept his face calm. He had been trained for this moment. Earth's leaders knew this day would come. Humanity's rapid expansion through space had worried many of the older alien civilizations. They build weapons too quickly, added a being that looked like a giant insect with golden wings. Our scouts report that their warships grow stronger each month. Soon they may challenge our fleets. More voices joined in. Each alien species had something to say about humanity's threat to their way of life. Jake listened and wrote, but inside he felt a growing anger. These beings had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They had divided up the stars among themselves long before humans learned to make fire. Now they sat in judgment of his people, simply for wanting to explore and grow. The blue-skinned Zephyrians spoke next through their representative, a tall female with eyes like cut diamonds. "The humans show too much aggression," she said. "They do not ask permission before settling. New worlds. They do not follow the old agreements that keep peace between our peoples. Because they were not part of making those agreements," Jake thought to himself. But he did not speak. His job was to observe and report, not to argue. The insect-like Vrak Empire sent forward their war leader, a creature with sharp claws and armor-like skin. "We should act now," the Vrak growled. "Strike fast and hard before they become too strong. Show them that there are rules in this galaxy." Many heads nodded around the chamber. Jake felt his heart beating faster. Were they really talking about attacking Earth? About attacking human colonies where families lived and children played? "A few destroyed settlements will teach them to respect our borders," the Vrak continued. "Choose the most distant human colonies. Make examples of them. The humans will understand and pull back to their home system." The chamber filled with voices as different species discussed the plan. Some wanted to destroy all human space travel. Others thought economic pressure would work better. A few suggested simply building a wall of ships around human space to keep them contained. Jake wanted to stand up and shout that humanity would never accept such treatment. But he stayed in his seat and kept writing. His people needed to know what was coming. Then a change came over the room. The voices grew quiet as an ancient figure slowly rose from a seat in the back corner. Jake had noticed this being when he first entered but had not paid much attention. Now every eye in the chamber turned toward the old alien. This was Elder Thain of the Keth Mori, one of the oldest living beings in the galaxy. His people had watched civilizations rise and fall for thousands of years. His skin looked like old leather, marked with scars and lines that told stories of great age. His eyes glowed with a soft amber light that seemed to see through time itself. Elder, Thain walked slowly to the center of the chamber. Each step echoed in the silence. When he reached the speaking area, he turned to face the assembled representatives. His voice was quiet, but somehow everyone could hear each word clearly. "I have lived for 800 years, Elder Thain began. "I have seen many species rise to power and many fall to dust. I have watched wars that burned entire systems and peace treaties that lasted centuries. In all this time, I have learned to recognize certain patterns." He paused and looked directly at Jake. The human felt as if those ancient eyes could see into his soul. Long ago, there was another species much like these humans. They were young and aggressive. They expanded quickly and built strong weapons. They did not follow our old ways or respect our ancient borders. The chamber was completely silent now. Even the flying creatures had stopped moving. The council of that time decided to teach them a lesson. Elder Thain continued. "We chose their most distant colonies and destroyed them completely. We thought this would make them afraid. We thought they would retreat to their home world and beg for mercy." Elder Thain's amber eyes grew brighter, and Jake saw something like sadness in them. "We were wrong. That species did not retreat, they did not beg. Instead, they declared war on everyone who had attacked them. They fought with a fury that none of us had ever seen before. They did not stop fighting until every last member of our attacking fleets was dead. They hunted us across the galaxy. For 50 years. The old being's voice grew softer but somehow more frightening. "If you attack the humans first, they will never stop hunting you. This I have seen before. This I know with certainty. They will turn their entire civilization into a weapon pointed at your hearts. They will not rest until either you are extinct or they are." Elder Thain looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each species representative. "Do not make the mistake we made long ago. Do not wake the sleeping giant." The chamber remained silent for a long moment after Elder Thain sat down. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Was this ancient being trying to help humanity? Or was he simply sharing a warning about what his people had learned? Speaker Valen finally broke the silence. "Thank you for your wisdom, Elder Thain. The council will consider all perspectives before making our decision." But Jake could see in the faces around him that many had already made up their minds. The fear in Elder Thain's warning had not convinced them. Instead, it seemed to make them more determined to act quickly. The vote was taken within the hour. 23 species voted to authorize preventive measures against human expansion. Only 5 voted against the motion. Elder Thain's people were among those who opposed the action. As the meeting ended and the representatives began to leave, Jake packed his notebook and recording device. He had to get this information back to Earth as quickly as possible. His people needed to know what was coming. As he walked toward the exit, Elder Thain appeared beside him. The ancient being moved with surprising quiet for someone so old. "Young human," Elder Thain said softly, "tell your leaders what I have said today. Tell them that some of us tried to prevent this. Tell them that when the darkness comes, they will have friends among the stars." Jake looked into those ancient amber eyes and nodded. "I will tell them," he promised. Elder Thain smiled sadly. "I fear it will not matter. The pattern has begun again. Your people will soon learn who they truly are." With those words, the ancient being walked away, leaving Jake alone with the weight of the warning and the certainty that everything was about to change. 3 weeks had passed since the Galactic Council meeting. Jake Harrison had delivered his report to Earth's leaders, but the government decided to keep the information secret. They did not want to cause panic among the colonies scattered across human space. Life continued as normal for the millions of humans living on distant worlds. Lisa Martinez woke up early on the morning that changed everything. As the colony administrator for New Austin on Kepler 442b, she always started her day by checking the overnight reports from the mining teams and agricultural stations. The coffee maker in her small office gurgled as she turned on her computer. New Austin was one of humanity's newest colonies, built only 8 months ago. 1,700 people called it home now. Families had come here looking for a fresh start and new opportunities. Children played in the carefully maintained parks while their parents worked to build a better future. Lisa smiled as she read through the daily reports. The mining operation had found a new deposit of rare metals that would make the colony profitable ahead of schedule. The school had received approval to expand for the growing number of students. 3 more babies had been born this week, bringing joy to their families and hope for the colony's future. She picked up her coffee mug and walked to the window that looked out over the main settlement. Early morning sunlight painted the metal buildings in warm golden colors. People were already moving along the walkways, heading to work or taking their children to school. It looked peaceful and normal, just like any other day. The emergency alarm shattered the quiet morning air. Lisa dropped her coffee mug and it broke on the floor with a crash. Red warning lights began flashing throughout the administration building. The colony's defense system had detected something approaching from space. Something big. Captain Roy Stevens of the Colony Defense Force was already running toward the command center when Lisa reached the communications room. His face was pale and his hands shook as he activated the orbital sensor displays. "What do we have, Roy?" Lisa asked, though she feared the answer. "Multiple ships incoming," Roy replied, his voice tight with worry. "Large vessels, unknown design. They're not responding to our identification requests." Lisa felt her stomach drop. New Austin was too far from Earth for any rescue fleet to arrive in time. The colony's defenses consisted of a few patrol ships and some basic weapons systems. They were designed to handle pirates or smugglers, not a full military attack. "How long until they reach us?" she asked. Roy checked his instruments. 20 minutes, maybe less." Lisa activated the colony-wide emergency broadcast system. Her voice echoed through every building and street in New Austin. "This is Administrator Martinez. All civilians should move immediately to the designated shelter areas. This is not a drill. Move quickly but stay calm. Parents, please gather your children and proceed to the nearest shelter." Through the command center windows, Lisa could see people running through the streets. Some carried small children, others helped elderly neighbors. The colonists had practiced this drill many times, but everyone knew this was real. Captain Stevens tried desperately to contact the approaching ships. "Unknown vessels, this is New Austin Colony. We are a peaceful settlement with civilians and children. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." Only silence came back through the communication system. The first enemy ships appeared, in the sky like dark shadows against the morning sun. Lisa had never seen spacecraft like these before. The vessels were sleek and deadly looking, with strange blue energy patterns glowing along their hulls. These were clearly military ships built for one purpose. "Those are Zephyrian battle cruisers," Roy said, recognizing the designs from intelligence reports. "And those smaller ships with the insect-like shapes are Vrak fighters." Lisa felt her heart sink further. 2 different alien species working together could only mean one thing. This was not a random attack. This was planned and coordinated by the Galactic Council. The attack began without warning. Bright beams of energy lanced down from the enemy, ships striking the colony's small defense platforms. Each explosion lit up the sky like a terrible fireworks show. The platforms, built to protect against small threats, disappeared in seconds under the alien weapons. Captain Stevens managed to get 2 of the colony's patrol ships into the air, but they were hopelessly outmatched. Lisa watched through the HFY command center window as one of the human ships tried to fight back. It fired its small weapons at a massive Zephyrian cruiser, but the shots bounced harmlessly off the alien shields. The Zephyrian ship turned toward the human patrol craft, like a giant predator facing a small insect. One blast from its main weapons vaporized the human ship completely. There was no explosion, no debris. One moment the ship was there, the next it was gone. "They're targeting the residential areas," Roy shouted over the sound of explosions outside. Lisa ran to the window and saw the horrible truth. The alien ships were not just attacking military targets. They were systematically destroying homes, schools, and civilian shelters. Families who had been running for safety were caught in the open, as energy beams turned buildings to dust around them. "Get me a communication link to Earth," Lisa ordered. "They need to know what's happening here." Roy worked frantically at his controls, but the alien ships were jamming most frequencies. Finally, he found one weak channel that might reach the HFY nearest relay station. "This is New Austin Colony calling any Earth vessel." Lisa spoke into the microphone. "We are under attack by alien forces. Zephyrian and Vrak ships are destroying our settlement. 1,700 civilians are in danger. We need immediate assistance. An explosion nearby shook the entire command center. Through the cracked windows, Lisa could see that the alien ships had destroyed the main power plant. Emergency lights flickered on throughout the building. Captain Stevens tried to reach the remaining patrol ship, but there was no response. The pilot, Lieutenant Sam Parker, had been one of Roy's best friends. Now his ship was nothing but glowing metal scattered across the colony's main street. "The communications array is still working," Roy reported. "I can try to send one more message before they destroy it." Lisa nodded. Someone on Earth needed to know what had happened here. Someone needed to tell the families of these colonists that they had fought back as best they could. Roy opened the final transmission channel. His voice was steady despite the chaos around them. "This is Captain Roy Stevens of New Austin Colony. Defense Force, we are under attack by combined Zephyrian and Vrak fleets. The colony is lost. 1,700 civilians, including women and children, are being killed by directed energy weapons. Tell Earth we fought. Tell them we tried to protect our people. Tell them to remember New Austin." The transmission ended in a burst of static as energy beams destroyed the communications array. Lisa and Roy looked at each other in the flickering emergency lights. Outside, the sounds of destruction were growing closer. The alien ships were being thorough in their work. They wanted to make sure nothing survived to tell the story. "I'm sorry, Lisa," Roy said quietly. "I failed to protect them." Lisa shook her head. "You did everything you could. We all did." The ceiling above them began to glow as alien weapons focused on the administration building. Lisa thought about her parents back on Earth, about the letter she had written but never sent telling them how much she loved her new life on New Austin. "Do you think anyone will remember us?" Roy asked. Lisa smiled sadly as the energy beams grew brighter. "They'll remember, and they'll make sure this never happens again." The administration building vanished in a flash of blue light. When the attack was over, New Austin Colony no longer existed. Where 1,700 people had lived and worked and dreamed of the future, there was only melted metal and glass. The alien ships had been precise in their destruction, leaving clear evidence of Zephyrian and Vrak weapon signatures. 5 other human colonies suffered the same fate that day. The attacks were coordinated to happen within hours of each other. Each settlement was completely destroyed, with no survivors left to tell their stories. But the aliens had made one critical mistake. Roy Stevens' final transmission had reached the relay station before the communications array was destroyed. Within hours, his words were being broadcast on every human world and ship. "Tell Earth we fought. Tell them to remember New Austin." On Earth, Admiral Kate Johnson sat in her Pentagon office reading the reports from the attacked colonies. The images from the orbital surveillance satellites showed the complete destruction. Families, children, entire communities wiped out in a matter of hours. President Dan Miller called an emergency cabinet meeting. The faces around the table were grim as the full scope of the attacks became clear. 6 colonies, over 10,000 civilians, all destroyed by the same alien species that had promised to teach humanity its place in the galaxy. Secretary of Defense Helen Carter was the first to speak. "They wanted us to know it was them. The weapon signatures are clear. This wasn't meant to be a secret attack. They wanted us to be afraid." Admiral Johnson looked up from the reports. "Mr. President, they've made a fundamental error in judgment. They think this will make us retreat back to Earth and beg for mercy. They don't understand what they've just awakened." The news spread across Earth faster than anyone had expected. Within 6 hours of the first reports, every television screen, computer, and communication device was showing the same terrible images. The destroyed colonies, the melted buildings, the empty spaces where children had played just hours before. Maria Santos sat in her small apartment in Mexico City, staring at her television screen. Her daughter Carmen had moved to New Austin Colony just 4 months ago with her husband and 2 young children. Maria had watched them leave with mixed feelings, proud that Carmen was brave enough to start a new life among the stars, but worried about the dangers of living so far from Earth. Now the screen showed nothing but twisted metal where Carmen's new home had been. The phone rang, but Maria could not move to answer it. She knew it would be her sister or her neighbor, calling to offer sympathy for her loss. But what could anyone say? Carmen was gone. Her grandchildren were gone. All because aliens had decided to teach humanity a lesson about staying in their place. Across the city, the same scene was playing out in thousands of homes. Families learning that their loved ones had been vaporized by weapons they could not even imagine. The aliens had chosen the most distant colonies for their attacks. Thinking this would minimize the impact on Earth's population, they had not understood that every colonist had family and friends back home. The government tried to control the flow of information, but it was impossible. Social media sites were flooded with pictures of the colonists who had died, videos of children playing in the settlements that no longer existed, messages that had been sent from the colonies just days before the attacks, full of hope and excitement about the future. President Dan Miller appeared on television that evening, his face grave and his voice heavy with emotion. "My fellow Americans and citizens of all nations," he began, "today we have suffered an unprovoked attack on our people. 6 of our colonies have been destroyed by alien forces. Over 10,000 innocent men, women, and children have been murdered." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "The species responsible for these attacks believe they have taught us a lesson. They believe we will now retreat to Earth and accept whatever limits they choose to place on us. They are wrong." The speech was broadcast around the world in dozens of languages. In every country, people gathered around their screens to listen. The president's next words would be remembered for generations. "We will not retreat. We will not bow to those who murder our children. We will not forget what they have done to our people. Today marks the beginning of humanity's response to this act of genocide." Within hours of the president's speech, something extraordinary began to happen. Recruitment centers for the military services found themselves surrounded by lines of volunteers. Young people who had never considered military service waited for hours to sign up. Older citizens who had served in previous conflicts came out of retirement to offer their experience. Jack Thompson had been working as a construction foreman in Detroit when the news broke. His nephew Billy had been living on New Austin Colony with his wife and newborn baby. Jack had been planning to visit them next year, to meet his grandnephew for the first time. Now there would be no visit, no chance to hold the baby or see Billy's proud smile as he showed off his new home. Jack drove straight from his job site to the nearest military recruitment office. At age 45, he was older than most recruits, but the sergeant who interviewed him didn't hesitate to accept his application. "What skills do you have, Mr. Thompson?" the sergeant asked. "I build things," Jack replied, "but I can learn to destroy them too." The same scene was happening everywhere. Auto factories that had been producing civilian cars received emergency orders to start building military vehicles. Shipyards that constructed cargo vessels were given new blueprints for warships. Universities that had been researching better crops suddenly found their brightest students transferred to weapons development programs. Dr. Alan Cooper had spent his career studying peaceful applications of energy technology. His work had helped make the colony ships more efficient and the settlements more comfortable. Now he found himself in charge of a new government laboratory with unlimited funding and one simple mission: learn how to kill aliens more effectively than they could kill humans. Alan's team worked around the clock, studying the wreckage recovered from the attacked colonies. Every piece of alien technology was examined, tested, and reverse-engineered. The Zephyrian energy shields that had seemed so powerful were found to have specific frequencies that could disrupt them. The Vrak weapons that had vaporized human ships had cooling systems that could be overloaded. They made a mistake leaving so much evidence behind, Alan told his assistant as they examined a damaged piece of Zephyrian armor. They wanted us to know who had attacked us, but now we know exactly how their technology works. The shipyards of Earth had never been busier. The USS Retribution was the first of the new class of human warships, designed using lessons learned from the alien attacks. Captain Sandra Hayes took command of the vessel on a cold morning in December, just 3 months after the colony attacks. Sandra had lost her brother in the destruction of Haven Colony, another of the settlements targeted by the aliens. As she stood on the bridge of her new ship, She could see dozens of other vessels under construction in the orbital shipyard. Each one was larger and more heavily armed than anything humanity had built before. "Captain," her first officer reported, "we're receiving deployment orders from Earth Command." Sandra opened the sealed envelope and read the brief message inside. The Retribution and 12 other ships were to proceed immediately to the Vega system, where intelligence reports suggested the aliens were building a forward base. "Set course for Vega," Sandra ordered. "Maximum speed." As the Retribution accelerated, away from Earth, Sandra thought about her brother Tom and his family. They had moved to Haven Colony because they believed in humanity's future among the stars. The aliens had destroyed that dream, but they had also created something else. A unified human species with a single purpose. Meanwhile, on the Zephyrian, homeworld of Crystar, General Vextar was receiving disturbing reports from his intelligence operatives. The humans were not behaving as expected. Instead of retreating to their home system and begging for mercy, they were expanding their military presence throughout their territory. "The attacks were supposed to demonstrate our superior firepower," General Vextar said to his aide, a younger Zephyrian with nervous energy patterns flickering across his crystalline skin. "Why are they not seeking peace negotiations?" The aide consulted his data tablet. "Sir, our monitoring stations report that human ship construction has increased by 4,000%. They are building vessels designed specifically for warfare, not exploration or trade." General Vextar felt a chill run through his crystal-like body. 4,000%. That was not the response of a species seeking to avoid further conflict. That was the response of a species preparing for war. "What about their diplomatic channels?" he asked. "Surely they are sending messages asking for terms of surrender." The aide's energy patterns dimmed with worry. "No, sir. All human diplomatic communications have ceased. They are not responding to any attempts at contact from Council species." On the insect homeworld of the Vrak Empire, war leader Zixith was having similar problems. His scouts reported that human patrol fleets were moving into systems that had previously been empty. New human outposts were being constructed at an incredible pace, each one heavily fortified and equipped with advanced weapons. They should be cowering in their home system. Zixith clicked his mandibles in frustration. 6 destroyed colonies should have taught them to respect our power. His subordinate, a smaller Vrak with scarred chitin armor, brought forward the latest intelligence reports. "War leader, the humans have discovered our forward base at Proxima Drift." Zixith's compound eyes focused on the report. Proxima Drift was supposed to be a secret listening post, positioned to monitor human communications and fleet movements. It was protected by advanced stealth technology and defensive weapons. "What action have they taken?" Zixith asked. The subordinate's antennae twitched nervously. "The base is gone, war leader. No distress signals, no wreckage, no trace that it ever existed. The humans made it simply disappear." For the first time since the attacks on the human colonies, Zixith felt something he had not experienced in decades of warfare: fear. Back on Earth, the memorial services for the colony victims had become something else entirely. What began as gatherings to mourn the dead had transformed into recruitment, rallies. Families who had lost loved ones stood before crowds of thousands, not asking for sympathy, but demanding action. Betty Chen had lost her son David and his entire family in the New Austin attack. At the memorial service in San Francisco, she spoke to a crowd of 10,000 people gathered in the city's main park. "My son believed in humanity's future," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the amplification system. "He believed we could build something beautiful among the stars. The aliens took that dream away from him, they took it away from all of us. 2 years had passed since the colony attacks, and the galaxy looked very different. Human ships now appeared in star systems that had been considered safe alien territory for thousands of years. The creatures who had voted to destroy human settlements were learning what it meant to be hunted." Commander Pete Sullivan checked his instruments one final time as his stealth squadron approached the Vrak industrial complex at Theta Orionis. His ships were invisible to alien sensors, built using technology stolen from destroyed enemy vessels and improved by human engineers who worked day and night to make better weapons. Pete's younger brother Danny had been a teacher at New Austin, Colony. Danny had loved working with the children there, helping them learn about their new world and the exciting future that waited for them among the stars. The Vrak had turned Danny and his students into dust in a matter of seconds. Now it was time for the Vrak to learn what that felt like. "All ships, this is Wolf Leader," Pete spoke quietly into his communication system. "Target confirmed. Begin attack pattern Alpha." The Vrak had boasted that their industrial complex was the most heavily defended facility in their empire. Massive energy shields protected the shipyards where their war fleets were built. Automated defense platforms surrounded the station, ready to destroy any attacking force. The Vrak military had declared that Theta Orionis was impossible to assault. They were wrong. Pete's ship struck simultaneously from 12 different directions. The new human plasma weapons, designed specifically to overload Vrak shield generators, tore through the defensive barriers like they were made of paper. The alien defense platforms, built to fight enemies who followed traditional military tactics, were helpless against the swarm attack pattern that human strategists had developed. "Shields down on the main facility," reported Lieutenant Amy Walsh, Pete's wing commander. "Beginning primary strike." The attack lasted exactly 6 hours and 17 minutes. When it was over, the massive Vrak shipyard was nothing but glowing. Debris floating in space. 12 Vrak warships under construction had been vaporized. The facility that had taken 50 years to build had been erased in a single morning, but the humans did not stop there. Over the following weeks, Pete's squadron and others like it systematically destroyed every Vrak military installation within 50 light-years of Theta Orionis. Supply depots, communication stations, mining facilities, troop barracks, all were eliminated with the same cold efficiency. The Vrak military command tried to respond, sending their best fleets to hunt down the human raiders. But the human ships seemed to appear and disappear like ghosts, striking without warning and vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. On Earth, General Lynn Foster coordinated the largest military operation in human history from a command center buried deep beneath Washington, D.C. The walls of the room were covered with star maps showing the locations of every known alien installation. Red markers indicated targets that had been destroyed. Blue markers showed targets scheduled for elimination. The red markers far outnumbered the blue ones. Status report on Operation Payback. General Foster requested from her aide, a young lieutenant, who had joined the military after losing his entire extended family in the colony attacks. Sector 7 has been cleared of all Vrak military presence, the lieutenant reported. Sector 12 is 70% complete. The Zephyrian outposts in the Centauri region have been eliminated. General Foster nodded with satisfaction. Each destroyed enemy base meant fewer aliens who could threaten human civilians. Each eliminated outpost was one step closer to ensuring that what happened to New Austin could never happen again. "What about their home systems?" she asked. The lieutenant consulted his data pad. "Intelligence reports that both the Vrak and Zephyrian governments are pulling their fleets back to defend their core worlds. They have abandoned their forward positions in 17 systems." This was exactly what the human strategists had hoped for. By attacking the aliens' outer territories, they were forcing their enemies to concentrate their forces closer to home. This made the alien fleets easier to track and would make the final assault much more decisive. Meanwhile, the Zephyrian leadership was discovering that their crystal cities were not as safe as they had believed. Ambassador Thain, the same diplomat who had argued for attacking human colonies, now found himself requesting an emergency meeting with human representatives. The human diplomatic station in neutral space was a stark, functional building with no decorations or comfortable furnishings. When Thain arrived, he was met by Admiral Susan Clark. The Admiral's own family had lived on Haven Colony before the attacks. She had seen the pictures of her sister's home reduced to melted glass. "We wish to discuss terms for ending this conflict," Thain said, his crystalline features flickering with nervous energy patterns. Admiral Clark looked at the alien diplomat with cold, steady eyes. "There are no terms. There is no negotiation. There is only the completion of our mission." Thain's energy patterns grew more agitated. "Surely you cannot mean to continue this violence indefinitely." The Galactic Council can offer compensation for the lives lost in the regrettable incident. Incident? Admiral Clark interrupted, her voice sharp as broken glass. You call the murder of 10,000 innocent civilians an incident? The Zephyrian diplomat seemed to shrink back from the fury in her voice. We had hoped to demonstrate that humanity needed to respect established galactic boundaries. The action was meant to be limited. Limited. Admiral Clark stood up from her chair. You targeted schools. You vaporized children in their beds. You destroyed families who had done nothing but try to build a better life for themselves. She walked to a wall display that showed images from the destroyed colonies. Pictures of the families who had died, the homes that had been vaporized, the dreams that had been turned to ash. You wanted to teach us our place in the galaxy, Admiral Clark continued. Consider this our response to your lesson. Zarthan looked at the images and felt something like fear creep through his crystalline body. What do you want from us? Admiral Clark turned back to face him. We want you to understand what you created when you attacked our people. We want you to know that every Zephyrian and Vrak military installation will be destroyed. We want you to realize that your species chose this fate when they chose to murder our children. The alien diplomat's energy patterns dimmed with despair. You cannot mean to eliminate our entire military capability. That would leave us defenseless against other threats. Yes, Admiral Clark said simply, it would. As the meeting ended and Zarthan left the station, he carried with him the terrible knowledge that humanity had no intention of stopping their campaign of revenge. The species that had seemed so young and weak had transformed into something that struck fear into civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. Back in the Vrak Empire, war leader Zixith was learning the same lesson. His forces had been driven back from system after system by the relentless human advance. The insects who had once boasted of their military superiority now found themselves trapped in their home territory, waiting for the humans to come for them. How many fleets do we have left? Zixith asked his subordinate during their daily briefing. 47 battle groups remain operational, came the reply. But they are scattered across our core systems for defensive purposes. The humans have made it impossible to concentrate our forces without leaving our colonies unprotected. Zixith clicked his mandibles in frustration. The humans had learned from their own tragedy. Instead of targeting civilian populations, they focused exclusively on military assets. This made it impossible for the Vrak to abandon their defensive positions without leaving their own families vulnerable. What about our allies? Zixith asked. Surely the other council species will come to our aid? His subordinate's antennae drooped with defeat. The other species have declared neutrality. They claim this is a conflict between us and the humans, despite the fact that the council voted to authorize the original attacks. The truth was that the other alien species were terrified. They had watched the systematic destruction of Vrak and Zephyrian forces and realized that humanity was not interested in conquering territory or enslaving populations. The humans wanted something much simpler and much more frightening, the complete elimination of anyone who had threatened their people. On a remote monitoring station at the edge of Kethmori space, Elder Thain watched the reports of human military victories with a mixture of sadness and grim satisfaction. His people had tried to warn the council about what would happen if they attacked humanity first. Now his ancient prophecy was coming true with terrifying precision. Elder, his young aide approached cautiously. The humans have destroyed the Vrak fortress at Beta Hydri. Their entire third fleet was eliminated. Elder Thain closed his amber eyes and sighed deeply. And still they do not understand. The Vrak and Zephyrians believe this is about territory or resources or political power. They do not realize that humans are not fighting for conquest. What are they fighting for, Elder? The young Kethmori asked. Elder Thain opened his eyes and looked out at the stars, many of which now flew human flags. They are fighting to ensure that no one will ever. 5 years had passed since the first attacks on human colonies. The galaxy had learned the true meaning of Elder Thain's ancient warning. The Vrak Empire, which had once controlled 40 star systems, now held only their homeworld. The Zephyrian, Republic had been reduced to 3 isolated colonies, each one surrounded by human fleets waiting for the final order. Captain Brad Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Vengeance, flagship of the human fleet surrounding the last Vrak stronghold. Through the main viewing screen, he could see the insect homeworld of Vrak Prime, its surface covered with the dark hive cities where billions of the creatures lived and worked. Brad had lost his wife and daughter in the Haven colony attack. For 5 years, he had fought his way across the galaxy, destroying every Vrak military installation he could find. Now he was finally here, at the place where the decision to murder human children had been made. "Status report," Brad ordered his second-in-command. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Williams consulted her tactical display. All Vrak orbital defenses have been neutralized. Their planetary shield generators are offline. The remaining Vrak fleet consists of 12 damaged vessels hiding behind their moon. Brad nodded. The Vrak had fought bravely in their final battles, but courage could not overcome the technological superiority that humanity had achieved through 5 years of total war. Human weapons were now generations ahead of anything the aliens possessed. "What about civilian populations?" Brad asked. "Sensors show approximately 4 billion Vrak civilians on the planet's surface," Sarah replied. "No military targets remain, except for the government command center in the primary hive city." This was the moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy forever. The Vrak military was defeated. Their ability to threaten human colonies had been completely eliminated. Brad could order his fleet to withdraw, leaving the surviving Vrak to rebuild their civilization without the capacity for interstellar warfare. But Brad remembered his daughter Lucy's face in the family pictures that had survived the Haven colony attack. He remembered the toys scattered among the melted ruins of their home. He remembered the promise he had made at her grave marker in the memorial garden on Earth. "Open a channel to the Vrak government," Brad ordered. The main screen flickered, showing the interior of the Vrak command center. War leader Zixith appeared, his insect features showing clear signs of exhaustion and defeat. Behind him, other Vrak officials huddled in the darkness of their underground bunker. "Human commander," Zixith spoke, his mandibles clicking with nervous energy. "We are prepared to surrender. Our military forces have been destroyed. We no longer pose any threat to your people." Brad looked at the alien leader who had helped plan the attacks on human colonies. "Do you remember what you told your people when you voted to destroy our settlements?" Zixith's compound eyes avoided Brad's gaze. "We believed a limited strike would demonstrate our superior power. We thought you would retreat to your home system and accept our authority." "You thought wrong," Brad replied coldly. "You see, there's something you never understood about humans. When you threaten our families, when you murder our children, we don't just fight back. We make sure the threat can never return." The Vrak leader's antennae trembled as he began to understand what Brad was saying. "You cannot mean to destroy our entire world. We have billions of innocent civilians who had nothing to do with the attacks on your colonies." Brad was quiet for a long moment, thinking about all the human children who had been playing in their homes when the alien weapons turned them to ash. "Your government made the decision to target our civilians. Your people supported that decision. Your entire species celebrated when the news of our destroyed colonies reached your homeworld. But that was years ago," Zixith protested. "We have learned our lesson. We will never again threaten human space. We swear this by our sacred hive oaths." Brad shook his head slowly. "The time for oaths and promises is over. You had your chance to coexist peacefully with humanity. You chose war instead. Now you face the consequences of that choice." The communication channel closed, leaving the Vrak leaders alone in their bunker to contemplate their fate. On Earth, President Mary Watson sat in the Oval Office reviewing the final battle reports from across human space. The war was effectively over. Humanity now controlled more territory than any single species in galactic history. The message had been sent and received by every surviving civilization. "Madam President," her military advisor entered the room. "Captain Morrison is requesting final authorization for Operation Conclusion." President Watson looked at the classified folder on her desk. Inside were the detailed plans for the complete elimination of the Vrak and Zephyrian species. 5 years of total war had led to this moment. The choice between mercy and the guarantee that no alien species would ever again dare threaten human families. She thought about the memorial walls on Earth, covered with the names of every colonist who had died in the first attacks. She thought about the children who would never grow up, the families that had been destroyed, the dreams that had been turned to dust. Authorization granted, she said quietly. The final battle was not glorious or heroic. It was the methodical completion of a task that had begun 5 years earlier. The human fleets surrounding the last Vrak and Zephyrian worlds carried out their orders with professional efficiency. Advanced weapons that had been developed specifically for this purpose ensured that the end was swift. When it was over, 2 entire species had been eliminated from the galaxy. The Vrak Empire and the Zephyrian Republic existed only in historical records and the memories of those who had witnessed their destruction. In the aftermath, other alien species sent urgent diplomatic messages to Earth. The Andromedan Union, the Kethamori Confederation, and dozens of smaller civilizations all expressed their desire for peaceful relations with humanity. None mentioned the fate of the Vrak and Zephyrians directly, but the message was clear. They had learned the lesson that the destroyed species had failed to understand. Elder Thain sat in his meditation chamber on the Kethamori homeworld, surrounded by the quiet of his ancient thoughts. A young aide approached, bringing news of the final human victory. Elder, the last Vrak and Zephyrian strongholds have fallen. The human fleets report complete success in their operations. Elder Thain nodded slowly, his amber eyes reflecting the weight of centuries. And so it ends, just as I warned it would. The young Kethamori looked troubled. Elder, the humans could have stopped after defeating their enemy's military forces. Why did they continue until nothing remained? Elder Thain rose from his meditation cushion and walked to the window that looked out over his people's crystal cities. In the distance, the lights of a human diplomatic station could be seen among the stars, a reminder that the galaxy had new masters now. Because that is what makes humans different from every other species we have encountered, Elder Thain explained. When you threaten their children, they don't just seek victory. They seek to ensure that the threat can never, ever return. He turned to face his young aide. The Vrak and Zephyrians made the fundamental error of believing that humans would react like other species, that they would be satisfied with a military victory and some form of negotiated settlement. They did not understand that humans are willing to sacrifice everything, including their own moral comfort, to protect their families. But surely there could have been another way, the young aide suggested. Some form of justice that did not require complete extinction. Elder Thain's ancient face showed deep sadness. Perhaps, but the Vrak and Zephyrians chose to begin this conflict by targeting human civilians, by murdering children in their beds. They created a precedent that demanded absolute response. He gestured toward the star charts on his wall, showing the vast expanse of space now controlled by human fleets. The other species of the galaxy are watching and learning. They see what happens when you threaten humanity's families. They understand that humans are not interested in conquest or glory. They simply want to be left alone to raise their children in peace. And if someone threatens that peace? The aide asked. Elder Thain closed his eyes, remembering his ancient vision of another species that had made the same mistake millennia ago. Then they will learn what the Vrak and Zephyrians learned. Humans will hunt them across the galaxy until either the threat is eliminated or humanity itself is extinct, and humans are very, very hard to kill. The young aide left the chamber carrying with him the weight of understanding. The galaxy had a new dominant species, one that asked for nothing more than the right to exist peacefully. But that same species had demonstrated that they would commit genocide to protect their children. As night fell on the Kethamori homeworld, Elder Thain stood alone at his window, looking up at the stars. Many of those distant suns now flew human flags, conquered not through aggression but through the terrible logic of absolute retaliation. The alien Seer had spoken his warning 5 years ago. If you strike first, they'll never stop. The Galactic Council had not listened. Now 2 entire species were extinct, and the remaining civilizations of the galaxy lived in the shadow of humanity's demonstrated willingness to choose extinction over submission.